Welcome to the National Minority Supplier Development Council's Equity in Business podcast. My name is John Daniel, and I'm humbled to be your host. But I'm honored to be here with Mr. George Robinson II,
Indeed.
who is the Director and of Supplier Diversity and Inclusion at UPMC.
Indeed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
for taking the time with us.
Sure.
I'm going to get right into it, sir.
Go right ahead.
Let's do a backstory on you. We know what you're doing now, and you're going to describe that further, but tell me how you came to do this.
So,
where you from?
So I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio, born and raised, and developed a career in government administration with my engineering background, business background, and so rose up through the ranks within the city of Toledo, became the first deputy director of public utilities, running a very large construction project for our city, $500,000 program. And with our engineer of record opening offices, they said, hey, we're getting ready to open up a water and wastewater practice office in Pittsburgh. Would you be interested? And I said, well, considering what's going on in Toledo, sure, why not? Fast forward a couple of years later, an opportunity arose at UPMC within their supplier diversity program. And several moons ago, I actually ran a division of the Ohio Department of Development, minority business, economic development within their construction and minority business efforts for the state of Ohio. Also having been a MBE and a current MBE, owning a business, I said, well, hey, UPMC is the largest employer in the state of Pennsylvania, largest healthcare provider in the state of Pennsylvania, and very pivotal in rural areas as well as urban areas delivering healthcare and life-changing medicine. Why not look at an opportunity with an organization as large as UPMC to make a difference with diverse vendor utilization? Oddly enough, in that same conversation, the individual that I was replacing was on her retirement track. And so I was actually hired as a part of the succession plan, transitioning from engineering services back into diverse business development, attraction and retention. And so 6 years later, then promoted into the director position, and ever since just began trailblazing new heights within UPMC's Supplier Diversity and Inclusion program.
I love it. And I want to dig down a little bit further on you.
Sure.
Because I think that the road that you've traveled is inspiring. And to have really young men and women out there hear what you've accomplished.
Sure.
If you want to share some of the things that you went through, that's fine. But please share a little bit about your pedigree, what you've studied in a little bit more detail.
Sure. So undergrad in chemical and environmental engineering. And actually, I had the aspirations of working for a glass manufacturer. So in Toledo, glass is very big. And I was fortunate to be in En-ROADS program.
Yes,
during the late 90s. And so, oddly enough, in my last year of engineering school, my dad asked me this question. He said, son, what's your plan? I said, well, my plan is I'm going to graduate. En-ROADS has this position with this organization I've been interning with for 5 years. They're ready for me to come on board. That's the plan. He said, no, that's a job. But what's your plan? And so he actually challenged me to think and think very strategically about what do I really want to do. And so because there are so few blacks and black males, even more so in chemical engineering, I started to think, well, man, what is the career path that I could take that would have the highest dollar earning attainment? And it was to become a patent attorney for a pharmaceutical company. And so I said, well, all right, well, you want this plan? Well, here's the plan. I'll go to law school, get my JD, and combine my engineering degree with the law degree and work for, a pharmaceutical company. And so literally 2 weeks after graduating with my law degree, I started law school at the University of Toledo. And, while I was going through that process, work part-time jobs, to keep the lights on, but, continued through law school. And during my second year, I just came to this realization. part of the reason why I wasn't successful is because in engineering, they don't teach you how to write. And in law school, that's all you do. You typically only have final exams. There's no tests or quizzes during the semester. And it really wasn't the path that I needed to go through to really fulfill my life's objectives, which were still being determined at that time. And so was very fortunate at that time. I worked for a municipal court judge as his law clerk and bailiff, and his court was the environmental and housing division within the Toledo Municipal Court. So all of the environmental cases that were levied in the city, so everything from illegal dumping to, let's say, a chemical manufacturer has a spill on the roadway and the city has to get involved. When those charges get pressed, it's the Environmental Services Division that presses those charges against those violators. So they would represent themselves in court. You'd have the defendant, the plaintiff, et cetera. So when I elected to leave law school, I had all of these connections within environmental services. They said, hey, we would love to have you come on board because you understand the legal ramifications of it. You can now translate that to on the ground enforcement, recognizing, the myriad of cases that we have within the city of Toledo. So transitioned to that position, received a couple promotions, and then an opportunity arose within the city's wastewater treatment plant where they needed engineers, and I applied for a position. It was another promotion. So I became the city's first African-American engineer to run operations at the wastewater treatment plant. And so in that opportunity, we were in the process of starting our $500 million consent order program, doing sewer conversions, sanitary storm sewer conversions to help protect the environment, our drinking water, and things of that nature. So I managed projects at the wastewater treatment plant. And, I started bumping my head against some adversity because I was the only African-American in a technical position outside of the laborers that worked in the plant doing very important jobs, but they were just not at a very high technical level.
Yes, sir.
And so an opportunity came with the Ohio Department of Development in their Minority Business Enterprise Division, where they actually had 7 regional centers that helped minority businesses obtain contracts, as well as business and technical assistance. And I was remiss when I was in college to mention that I actually started a landscaping business while I was in undergrad, grew that business to over 80 contracts with the city of Toledo, doing municipal lawn and landscaping services to help beautify my city. So I had that experience of being an MBE, but I was very young at the time. And I had that career path of chemical engineering, et cetera. And so while at the plant, dealing with some of the adversity, this opportunity comes up with the state, and I immediately applied. It got me out of that sort of technical industrial environment and brought me and projected me into an environment where, yes, there was still adversity because we deal with those issues with MBEs trying to showcase their wares, their goods, products, and services, and not necessarily lead with the diverse conversation, but that their products are just as good as everyone else's. It just so happens to be led by someone that does not look like mainstream America, which is changing now.
So your lived experiences,
Totally.
both in terms of pedigree and hurdles that you've had to go over in corporate America and in government,
Correct.
really make you authentic
Correct.
as a person
Sure.
who can delve into the world that's under assault now of DEI and belonging to.
Most
And
certainly.
so I think key here is when we take, and I'm so happy that you took time to share that, because now as we go into what's happening at UPMC, your responsibilities and what it is you want to achieve there, give me an idea of the mission, vision, values with that backdrop of your pedigrees, your experiences. What is going on there for mission, vision, values, and your objectives?
So just very plainly, our objective is to deliver life-changing medicine through the use of diverse vendors.
Say that one more time.
UPMC's motto is delivering life-changing medicine. And so as the supplier diversity director, it's my objective to lead the vision and execution of delivering life-changing medicine through the use of diverse vendors. And so, our main objectives and mission within our supplier diversity program is to make sure, number one, that our external audience, being the diverse vendors, recognize a level of equity and belonging in our selection process, as well as recognition of an advocacy perspective from our department across the entire enterprise. Quick fast facts on UPMC, roughly 100,000 employees, 45 hospitals. We're in 3 states and 5 countries, New York, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, with our headquarters being here in Pittsburgh. Large insurance arm through our UPMC health plan, approximately 5 million members. And then roughly about 16 subsidiary companies that actually deliver third-party benefits in healthcare space to the private sector across about 40 states in the United States. So we're a pretty decent-sized organization delivering medicine. And so with that responsibility of the diverse vendor being reflected, that is where our department comes in. I'm proud to say that in the 6 years that I've been at UPMC, I, along with my teammates and our other stakeholders across UPMC, have helped us to triple our diverse spend in that 6-year period. Our supplier diversity program is roughly 33 years old. So we've had iterations as an organization, actually being one of the early adopters here in Western Pennsylvania to deploy supplier diversity. And we've had iterations. When we first started, being fully transparent, we were not very effective. In our second sort of iteration, under the leadership of Tony Silva, the former senior director of supplier diversity, we were able to develop a very good structure within our organization. So policies, external engagement and involvement, advocacy at the buying level and above, executive sponsorship, et cetera. And so now under my leadership in this third iteration, what I've been focusing on is that educational component where we're continuing to inform our diverse vendor space on how to engage us as an organization, how to scale up their services and delivery so that they can meet UPMC where we are, and also appreciating that through that education scaling, they can work with other corporations to build their resumes and make it stronger once they approach UPMC.
Just a quick reflection on what you just articulated. What it tells me, and I believe it tells our audience, is that you can't give up. First iteration, second iteration, third iteration, and you learn as you go.
Correct.
Even if DEI is under assault.
Correct.
You still learn and gain insight. That's the kind of tenacity that I think is going to be needed. And
Sure.
You just shared with our audience.
Sure.
With all of this in mind, when you look at how you engage employees, attract, train, develop internally, what happens?
So previous generation, there was a strong push to develop education tracks for our new supply chain assets coming in to learn about supplier diversity. And you'd have fits and starts. You'd have some that, would immediately, participate in that training because it wasn't necessarily mandated. But true enough, it wasn't given on a regular cycle. So we had it available. Those that were interested, they could participate. Those that weren't, they went on, through their sourcing lives. And, when the opportunity came up, they might bump into the supplier diversity team and looking at, how can we extend opportunity to diverse vendors? When I came around, I said, listen, we have to build this structure in place. So we developed the presentation curriculum and we offer it quarterly. So not only do we hit all of those new employees that fall within that quarter cycle that have been hired, so they have to take the training, but we also provide that re-enrichment of our existing employees that wish to, take that training. They can sign up for that training as well. We also have a very strong and dedicated internal communications effort where we project ourselves across the entire enterprise. So not just supply chain management and finance where our program is housed, but how do we better communicate across the entire platform? In my leadership, one thing that I stress to our executive team is that everybody has an opportunity to impact supplier diversity. And I'll give you the example.
Oh, say that one more time.
Everybody that works at UPMC has an opportunity to impact supplier
That's
diversity.
ownership.
Definitely. And trying to transpose that philosophy in a very simple example. So we have our travel, business, and expense Visa cards that are distributed. We now, our supplier diversity team, has a relationship with Visa and PNC Bank, who is our fiduciary, where we get the reports on people just using their TB&E cards, on their daily course of exercise and business. And because of PNC Bank and Visa's commitment to supplier diversity, they help to channel that information where we can filter out just on TB&E expenses, what companies are minority or diverse owned, and we're able to allocate that spend.
For the audience.
Yes.
The acronym TBN.
Travel, business, and expense. Yeah, travel, business, and expense card. So again, folks that may be attending a conference, somewhere outside of our footprint, when they're spending dollars with restaurants, with hotels, with other services and goods that they may buy, we're able to now begin to identify, even in that microcosm, how each employee that has that card can impact diverse business utilization outside of supply chain, because that's where a lot of that uncaptured ecosystem exists outside of the contractual relationships that we manage within supply chain. And so empowering and educating our staff that, every opportunity you have in that space, you can choose diverse vendors. That's part of our communications. And that's just one platform that we use.
It's wonderful. And you're here at this conference as a presenter and as someone engaged in dialogue with multiple companies. That's basically a great way to develop people. Because you bring back ideas from a multiplicity of companies and you share with them. So this is great.
Well, unfortunately, I have the pleasure of being on the planning committee, and I was just announced as the chairman of the planning committee for BDLS 2025. So I'm taking an even heightened measure of engagement with NMSDC in ensuring that the BDLS experience that our conference attendees experienced this year, which was designed with strategic intention to disseminate information that can be translated on the ground when our participants and attendees get back to work on Monday, they can immediately access that knowledge tree as well as the relationship tree. And that's what's so important about BDLS. You're amongst 300 plus other peers that are in this saga, this journey together. And so when you go back to your organization where you may be a single individual within your supplier diversity program, which many practitioners are, you have community that you can fall back on. It's my hope that everybody's LinkedIn tree has just grown by 300 people because we want people to connect with as many folks who can share similar stories, share challenges, but most importantly, share strategies for success within their supplier diversity and business diversity program.
I see this is why we're honored to have you here, because one of our driving goals is to share information about what's happening, with the National Minority Supply Development Council. And so these training opportunities are wonderful for the people engaged.
Correct.
Tell me how it is that you came to the National Minority Supply Development Council.
So in my previous iteration working in Ohio for the state of Ohio through the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce, I was introduced to the Ohio, and at that time it was the Northern Ohio Minority Supplier Development Council. In Ohio at that time it was split between Northern and Southern. And so we had a lot of interaction with the Northern Ohio, with me being based in Toledo. And then, of course, that trickles up to the National Council. And so, through those interactions, that was my first introduction. Considering that the MCAP program, Minority Contractors and Business Assistance Program, which I was a director of, had that state-based relationship, which in Ohio, they have their own MBE certification program, MBE bonding program. They work in partnership with other NGOs across the state. That really dovetailed into my experience translating here to Pittsburgh, recognizing that in some of those other career stints that I haven't mentioned, I was responsible for diverse vendor sourcing on the government side, and we had to have those partners to provide us those quality vendors to support our business needs. Now here at UPMC, which we're a national member of NMSDC and a highly active member with the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council, our regional RPO, which I'm on the board of, we're able to dovetail both of those regional as well as national experiences. UPMC as an organization prides itself not only having that local impact, but because of the level of healthcare that we're able to project nationally and globally. Again, we're in 5 other countries. They also appreciate us participating in organizations at the national scale. And so when I became director, I just took that reign with both hands. And so my additional involvement with NMSDC is I'm the national co-chair of the healthcare industry group, representing about 95 healthcare organizations, insurance companies, manufacturers, group purchasing organizations, and distributors. And so I take it to that next level of engagement with our membership. It's not just that, we're trying to find these diverse vendors, but then how are we as industry leaders and practitioners sharing that best practice information, optimal diverse vendor lists, things of that nature, and improving ourselves as practitioners.
The reflection I see here is within your organization and collaborating with National Minority Supply Development Council, there is a local community positive impact. It's both economic and well-being focused.
Correct.
And social determinants of health
certainly
would be impacted by the medical approach that you're taking. But at a macro level, there's almost an economy of scale created.
Correct.
That could impact communities across the country and, quite frankly, outside the country, depending upon who's doing business with. Many of our organizations do international business.
Correct.
Here's my question to you in regards to UMPC. It is, what in your view of a measurement, is the economic impact on some of the communities that you're working with? Just one, any example you want to use.
So I like to use a much broader example.
That's fine.
Of not only combining the economic impact, but that healthcare impact that you just talked about.
Yes, sir.
So within our program, one of the drivers that I'm looking to project even further is the nexus of UPMC being in your community. So we have 45 hospitals. They each impact specific segments of every state that we're in and every country that we're in. You, the diverse vendor that lives in that community, are we using you as a supplier to support our operations, sales, things of that nature, where we're executing life-changing medicine through our business operations and medical operations?
What percentage of minority vendors are part of what you do?
So I'll speak a bit on spend. So right now, we have roughly 6.7 to 7% of our total sourceable spend is done with diverse vendors.
That's great.
And I'll advocate and complement that with, in healthcare, the national average for a health system actually just recently dropped. So it used to be 2% of your sourceable spend was done with diverse vendors. We've typically sat between 6 and 8%, depending on the year. And of course, we just, are coming out of the pandemic, 2 years out of that. Unfortunately, the national statistics has actually shown that the percentage has actually dropped to 0.75 to 1.25% of a healthcare institution's spend are with diverse vendors. And there's a myriad of justification for that. Considering the complexity of the types of devices that we're purchasing, there aren't diverse vendors in those spaces. We haven't found a diverse vendor that makes MRI, cancer X-ray machines, things of that nature. Those big dollar ticket items that hospitals procure. And then the way that the current ecosystem is set up with our suppliers. So, when you look at group purchasing organizations, large suppliers, though we don't have large suppliers in the minority space and diverse vendor space, what we challenge those large non-diverse vendors to do is to partner with smaller, diverse businesses in delivering services, products, and goods to us. When we look at our tier 1 and tier 2 spend, we have actually started to see our tier 2 spend begin to creep up and almost equal our tier 1 spend. So that tells us two things. Number one, it's great that we've been able to communicate what's important to UPMC to our tier 1 vendor space. But also, two, for us, it's showing us that now it's time we need to put a little bit more gas on our tier 1, because that's where we're actually extending that dollar to that diverse vendor. And we have those opportunities lined up, and we're beginning to see success in those spaces as well.
Absolutely. You make me reflect on the upcoming webinar for the economic impact report. I'm honored to host that.
Sure.
And one of the things that Yang has suggested in her notes in that report, Yang McGuire, the president CEO of the National Minority Supply Development Council, is that minority suppliers have to pivot at different times.
Sure.
To look at technology as an opportunity they need to be involved with.
Certainly.
So whatever, if it's making the equipment, if it's whatever is necessary, IT, that we try to gain those skills or, acquire those skills.
Correct.
To be a part of your company, as you just described.
Correct.
And so I think it's important, and you're emphasizing, you just said it, it's harder to find that supplier if they're not there. There's sometimes when they're there, nobody wants to tell you they're there.
Correct.
And so,
and we've had those examples where just this year, and mind you, our program, we have access to NMSDC. We bank all of the national databases. We couldn't find a diverse vendor in the escalator or elevator space. Typically that's owned by the manufacturer, whether it's Otis, Westinghouse, et cetera. And everything is proprietary because of the sophistication of the equipment. And we just so happened to stumble across a female-owned company that had been doing business with UPMC. They just weren't certified. And how our system allocates our diverse spend, it's all based on those vendors that are certified, where we can, acknowledge through third-party, certification that, yes, they are diverse. And having that conversation with that vendor, she basically started off saying, hey, I wanted to win the work because of the quality that we were providing, not because I was a woman. And, our philosophy in our organization is changing. So that leader in that space that's procuring those services, communicated to her, that's great and that's fine. But we as an organization, and I almost fell out my chair when he said this, we in our organization support our supplier diversity program. And so we need to have a more serious conversation with you as a vendor about obtaining this certification. And oh, by the way, when we look at how many millions of dollars we have spent with you over the years, there's no excuse for you not to have it. Now that we've communicated to you, us end user, we support this. And so we're continuing to, come across those vendors that may not have appreciated that certification conversation in past, now realizing UPMC is an evolving organization. We have allyship across our assets that are carrying that standard regarding the support of supplier diversity. But more important than that, I talked about us being in the community with our hospital system and the diverse vendors surrounding it from a geographic standpoint. Now what we're beginning to look at within supplier diversity is, do you, the diverse vendor, have UPMC insurance? So as a company, are you providing those benefits to your employees and you yourself? And are you using them?
Right.
Because it's one thing to say, hey, as a diverse-owned company, we provide health benefits, for our employees and for ourselves. But when we look at just the seminar we just stepped out of, talking about self-care, self-awareness, more and more of those comorbidities that we're dealing with in issues in healthcare that affect diverse individuals with a higher propensity, those individuals need to be addressing them with that relationship with their healthcare practitioner.
Yes, sir.
And they have to take the time. And so now we're beginning to delve into this ecosystem of, where's UPMC located? Where's that diverse vendor that we're using located? Do they have UPMC health plan insurance? And are they using it? whether it's for mental health services, to have a therapist, and that, conversation is becoming less taboo within the African American and Hispanic community. Are you talking to someone about the stresses that you're dealing with where you're getting those solutions provided, if only just to get it off your chest? Are you working with the healthcare practitioner on diet and nutrition as you are working in your business to help reduce the chances of you having diabetes or any other sort of issue or concern? And so our supplier diversity program is now starting to extend those conversations to our diverse vendors. Just 2 years ago, we did a financial wellness series with our diverse vending CEOs. So how is your personal financial house looking? And are you making sure you have that demarcation line where you're not crossing over into your business finances?
Right.
So we brought in financial practitioners to provide, financial resources and services. We also brought in a crew of therapists where we basically had a download session for those diverse vendors that wanted to participate. Hey, here's this healthcare practitioner that can talk to you about those issues and concerns, wins and losses that you've had, and how are you dealing with those things mentally in order that you can show up back in that office, your true, authentic self, as close to 100% as possible.
Absolutely. Clearly, we're talking about an ecosystem. It's not just a matter of doing good business. It's life or death.
Correct.
Because if you don't have the health, the education, the wealth creation ability, the workforce development, it's hard to adapt to change.
Correct.
And the one thing we know is going to happen is change.
Correct.
Sir, you are just giving a wealth of information, and I'm just quite enthusiastic about it. As we come to a close, there are a couple more questions. The last one is one of the most important, but what's your vision of the future with the National Minority Supplier Development Council?
Sure. My vision for NMSDC is one of continued hope and continued gains. As the national conversations regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in some areas grow flames, and in some areas grow advocacy. So I look at it both from a positive and a negative opportunity here. I think NMSDC can play a very pivotal role in addressing both those flames as well as those accolades. For NMSDC, to continue its efforts in raising the standard on the importance and value of diverse vendors, especially those minority vendors that are contributing to not only those local and regional economies, but to a national economy. This actually dovetails into when you talk about workforce shortages, talent shortages. Our diverse vendors go through those same issues and concerns. Our minority businesses have issues and concerns finding talent, just like everyone else. So in recognition that it's just like everyone else, those solutions that are developed should be distributed just like to everyone else.
Yes, sir.
Including our diverse and minority businesses, because they add value, not only to that household where that CEO walks home every night or wishes that they were laying in that bed because they're traveling, trying to keep their business functioning, but also those communities and those tertiary relationships that they have. Their children. I spoke on Tuesday here at the conference about why we brought it here. And I do this work not just for UPMC, but I do it for my sons who are entrepreneurs in their own right. And so NMSDC can play that and can continue playing that pivotal role amongst the other NGOs in uplifting diverse vendors' importance to this national economy, regional and local economies.
I love it. I love it. Just a reflection. Consistently throughout this conversation, you've been transparent. You've been humble. You've been honest and hungry for the truth.
Yes.
In all of this. That kind of framework and lens allows us to be vulnerable.
Certainly.
And that's where we become our strongest.
Correct.
Somebody once said in a book that we're familiar with, when I'm weakest, I'm my strongest.
That's right.
And I think key here is that's the energy and intellect I'm getting from you. That said,
I want to give you platform, sir,
Sure.
to in this first discussion we're having online with anything that we haven't covered that you want to address.
Well, the only thing that we really haven't addressed outside of the future of what NMSDC can project itself with our diverse business and minority business community is, and so many people are losing sight of this, is what is the next generation's focus going to be? Now, granted, NMSDC has a wonderful emerging young entrepreneurs program, which UPMC is a sponsor of. I've had 2 mentees in that program, and I definitely appreciate it. But I think that there's a much larger opportunity for NMSDC to play a pivotal role in developing our next level of entrepreneurs, especially considering the types of conversations that are being had across the country at this time. It's seed betting time. Yes, we have our existing vendors that NMSDC has been able to service, deliver quality vendors to our corporate membership, provide training to our corporate membership as well as our MBE community. But how are we starting to plant the seeds for our next generation of minority business owners where NMSDC can play that lead role? There's several national partnerships that I think of, which I'm sure if I shared it, NMSDC would have to hire me to execute it. But we cannot forget about that community. When we look at the transition in value of a college degree to more technical skill sets and certificate-based programming, the next phase after those certificate-based program opportunities typically lies in entrepreneurship. Right. So how are we even attacking that particular question of certificate-based attainment to translation it to entrepreneurship? NMSDC can play in that space as well, and I encourage them to do so.
That's a treasure, sir. And I think we should research how that can be implemented. So I appreciate you coming, sir.
My man.
And I can't wait till the next time. Perhaps we can do this again when we're in Atlanta.
Indeed. I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic, sir.
Appreciate you, sir.